G'day folks. So I did a video the other day on eggs and how there was a study that came out that said we should eat more eggs, and I got a lot of comments and requests from people saying that they wanted me to do more of this type of stuff. So here I am today. Tonight, a few days ago, I ran a story about how plant-based milks are dangerous and how we should be drinking more dairy. They got an expert dietitian in and they ran a story, and they talked about how scary it is. So basically I'm just going to play you through this story from Today Tonight, and I'm just going to interject with my responses to each point they make. So here we go.
Well, milk substitutes are often thought of as a healthy alternative, but with more families ditching dairy, it has some experts worried about the health ramifications. Stephanie Piccone explains.
I think calling them milk is very misleading.
First of all, the dietitian expert that they got in, Tanya Ferraretto, she was somebody who was called in last year to have an opinion on, or maybe the year before last, maybe last year, I don't know. Anyway, she had an opinion on me and my potato diet, and it's interesting to see that she's back. She had a negative opinion, obviously, on me and my Spud Fit challenge. And it's interesting to see that she's back. Obviously, she's not talking about me this time, but she's still got negative opinions about plant-based stuff. Also, it's worth noting that she is a spokesperson for the Dieticians Association of Australia. We'll get to that later. Tanya Ferraretto, the first point is calling them milk. Calling plant-based milks milk is very misleading. So to have soy milk on a carton is very misleading, or almond milk on a carton is very misleading. I actually feel like this is a bit of an insult. You know, I don't agree with drinking milk as a health food or for any reason, but that doesn't mean I'm prepared to be so insulting towards milk drinkers to assume that they can't understand that if you've written soy milk on a carton, that means it doesn't come from a cow, it comes from soy beans, or almond milk comes from almonds, not from cows. Come on, milk drinkers can tell the difference. we don't need to go around thinking that it's misleading. I don't think anyone's ever bought soy milk thinking it was cow's milk.
Coconut, soy, almond, cashew, macadamia, rice, oat, goat. It seems these days any and everything is being turned into a milk or milk substitute.
Into a little saucer.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
Oh yeah, you can milk anything with nipples.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
And while initially the craze was only popular among the latte-loving hipsters.
All right, so they've said, this last segment is basically just another way to demonise plant-based milk. They're trying to make it look silly, make it look stupid, trying to insult people who drink. This time they're actually trying to insult people who drink plant-based milk, saying it's for hipsters, or saying it's just stuff to be made fun of in comedy movies and whatever. And by the way, I think that clip from Meet the Parents was quite funny, but still, it's just their way of trying to make plant-based milk look silly, look stupid, look like it's not worth taking seriously.
It's now spread and has experts warning that dropping dairy could be detrimental to your health.
Experts warning it could be detrimental to your health. Who? Which experts? I bet they're paid industry type experts, right? Let's have a look at the Dieticians Association of Australia, who Tanya Ferraretto, the consulting expert here, is a spokesperson for. The Dieticians Association of Australia. Who are they working with? Well, let's have a look at their major sponsors. I'm not making this up, people. Just go to their own website, the Dieticians Association of Australia's own website, and you'll see major partners. They are Jalna, a yogurt company, dairy company. There is Meat and Livestock Australia, so animal agriculture, the dairy part, I guess dairy is part of that. They are livestock after all. You'll see Campbell's Arnott's, producers of junk food, chocolate, things like that. Tim Tams, these barbecue shapes, all this sort of crappy junk. And you'll see Nestle, maybe the world's biggest producer of junk food, and obviously producer of a lot more dairy products. So I don't think Dietitians Association of Australia can be trusted with anything when these are the people, these are the companies, these are the businesses who pay the bills for the Dietitians Association of Australia. They're not unbiased, they're not impartial, they are answering to these major sponsors that are sitting on their back going, you make sure we look good. Don't trust the Dietitians Association of Australia when they've got partners like that.
I have lots of clients who have replaced milk with substitutes, and actually they don't realise what they've done and the consequences of that.
Dietitian Tanya Ferraretto.
Once you are above 50, more than half of us will suffer from osteoporosis, and that can lead to fractures, it can lead to extended hospital stays, and it's really a debilitating condition. But it's preventable. So when we're young, particularly if we're having lots of calcium in our diet, and if we continue that through our adult life, we can really reduce the risk of osteoporosis.
Okay, Tanya Ferraretto says osteoporosis is a problem and it's preventable with lots of calcium from when you're young and continue through adult life. Tanya Ferraretto, how many other species drink milk as adults? How many other species drink milk of other species that are not them as adults? How many other species suffer from osteoporosis? More importantly, it's not a common thing in the animal kingdom, of which no species drinks milk past adolescence, and definitely not from a different species. Besides that, bones, it's all about calcium. Bones are more than just calcium. If you've ever picked up a piece of calcium, it's really, really brittle. It'll fall apart in your hands. You don't have to do much to it. If that was all our bones were made of, then we'd be in serious trouble. This massive focus on calcium for our bones all comes from the dairy industry. That's the whole reason that we have this obsession with calcium, is because, yes, dairy products have a lot of calcium. Cow's milk has a lot of calcium. But that's just something that the dairy industry latches onto. They say, right, we've got a lot of calcium. That means that we have to drum it into people that they need a lot of calcium. We need people to believe that they need a lot of calcium so that they'll come to us to get it. That's what it's all about. There is so much more to bone health than just calcium, but we don't really talk about it. But there are other minerals involved in the whole process. They're just latching onto this as a selling point. We as a society drink a ton of milk, a lot of milk. I'll get to some figures later, but you would think that the amount of milk that people drink, that if it was going to solve the osteoporosis problem, then it would be solved by now, because we're not messing around with the amount of milk we drink, and then on top of that, the amount of cheese that we eat, and yogurt, and cream, other things like that. So, half of the population gets osteoporosis, and a lot more than half of the population consumes dairy products, including a lot of milk. So, it doesn't make sense to me that dairy is going to solve this problem if it hasn't already. I'm going to take a little punt here and say that it doesn't, since it hasn't. Now we can look at some evidence for this too. There was a study done by study on nuns living in a monastery, in different monasteries. There was 105 in each group. The one group of 105 were eating meat and dairy, and the other half were Buddhist nuns who were totally vegan. Not just any old vegans though. These people had been vegan for 33 years. It had been 33 years since they had had any dairy. This study found that there was no also the vegans had a significantly lower intake of calcium than the other group. All right, so they're not taking in as much calcium as the other group, but there was no significant difference in their bone mineral density between the two groups. So one was not having any dairy, and they were fine. They were good. Then there was this big osteoporosis meta-analysis. They looked at 17 different studies, including some industry-funded studies. They didn't leave those out. They put them in there anyway. And they looked at randomised controlled studies as well as cohort studies. This was a big study done by a group in New Zealand, funded by the New Zealand government, so there's no conflicts in these people who ran the study, but there were conflicts in some of the studies that they included in their meta-analysis. I'm going to read you parts of this conclusion because it's important. I'm not just going to summarise the conclusion. This is a big study and I want to read it to you. So, the first part of the conclusion. In summary, our analyses indicate that dietary calcium intake is not associated with risk of fracture, and there is no evidence currently that increasing dietary calcium intake prevents fractures. All right, no evidence that increasing dietary calcium intake prevents fractures. I guess Tanya Ferraretto hasn't read this study because she's saying the opposite. Collectively, these results suggest that clinicians, advocacy organisations and health policymakers should not recommend increasing calcium intake for fracture prevention, either with calcium supplements or through dietary sources. They should not recommend increased dietary calcium intake. Did you get that, Tanya Ferraretto? You should not recommend increasing calcium intake. Whew, I hope that made sense. It couldn't have been more clear if you ask me.
It's estimated that 1 in 6 Aussies have now ditched dairy, claiming quitting cow's milk simply makes them feel better. And according to Dairy Australia, substitutes are flying off supermarket shelves. Last year, close to 10 million litres of coconut milk passed through the checkout, while a staggering 25 million litres of almond milk was sold.
So, 10 million litres of coconut milk, 25 million litres of almond milk consumed each year in Australia. One figure they left out, 2.5 billion litres of dairy milk. 2.5 billion! And you're behaving like the 10 million of coconut milk and 25 million of almond is a big problem when you're selling 2.5 billion litres of dairy milk. For a nation of 25 million, that's 100 litres per year per person on average for our country. Whew, what's the real problem here? If 100 litres per person per year can't solve the osteoporosis crisis, what can? Maybe we could just leave that crap out.
These milk substitutes don't provide very much at all. They are almost like drinking water.
Water's good for you, Tanya. It's a lot better than dairy milk, that's for sure. Let's all drink water. I reckon those plant-based milks being almost like water is a bonus. It's a good thing. Drink plant-based milks, then you won't be getting all the crap that comes with cow's milk.
They also don't realise that they're risking their bone health.
Overseas, and the European Court of Justice agrees. So much so, they've introduced legislation banning plant-based products from using the word milk.
The Europeans obviously think that milk drinkers are stupid too, since they can't tell the difference between soy milk or almond milk or coconut milk and cow's milk. Maybe they think that milk drinkers can't read or something. What's wrong with these people? It's not a problem. I don't think anyone has ever bought coconut milk thinking it was cow's milk. I just can't see that that's happened, unless they couldn't read or something. Although, yeah, who knows?
If you are using alternative milks, first of all, I would suggest maybe thinking about why that is, because lots of times it's actually not necessary and it's not a good decision in terms of your health. If you continue to use some of these products, I would ensure that these are calcium fortified, so make sure that the calcium is high. It will be between 200 and 300 milligrams per glass. Otherwise, please don't buy the milk or the milk substitute. You're probably better off just with good old water.
So Tanya Ferraretto wants you to think about why it is that you're using milk alternatives. Make sure you're getting enough calcium. Again, with the supplements and the fortification and all that. And again, with this idea that you're better off drinking a glass of water. Yeah, and it's just another way to, saying that plant milks are okay as long as you get fortified ones. It's just another way to drum into us that plant-based milks are inferior, according to them. They just want people to know that you're better off drinking cow's milk. That's the message that they want to get across. That's Tanya's recommendation. Make sure that you've got fortified milks and supplements and all that. If you want my recommendation for this whole thing, it is do not listen to anything that Tanya Ferraretto or anyone else from the Dieticians Association of Australia has to say without looking into it first. Yes, they say lots of stuff that is true, but I wouldn't trust them. I'd just check it out for yourself first. And on top of that, I'd drink plant milk instead of cow's milk. Better still, drink water. Please, drink water. Drink plant milk, please. Do it for your bones. Won't somebody think of the bones? If you like this video, tell me below. If you don't like it, tell me below. Comment, subscribe, share it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Spud up.